Good evening, God bless you. This is truly a day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and I will be glad in it. This is Pastor Ron of Hope Healing and Harvest Ministries here in the city of Los Angeles. This is our hour of study, Bible study, the Word in Action. We have been on an awesome journey through Psalms 51. Psalms 51 is David's open confession, just open confession of just how devastated he was when he really reflected back and see the damage that he did in 2 Samuel regarding Bathsheba and that whole scenario. This is David's true confession. David was truly remorseful. And we take a look at what was David's feeling. I believe David was dirty. He was sick. He was feeling isolated and he was afraid. After all, here comes the prophet Nathan in chapter 12. Now, all of these things take place. All these events take place in 11. Now, 12 opens up with Nathan giving this beautiful parable. We're going to talk about that parable on tomorrow. That'll be the next video just after this one. But this video, I want to address the 7 sins that David is guilty of in chapter 11. 2 Samuel chapter 11. I want to talk about the 7 sins I found. Now, you may have a different number. You may view this a little bit differently than me. You may see something. You may see something else or whatever. But this is what the Lord gave me that I want to minister, because these are things that kind of sort of caught my attention as I was doing my study. Let me close some of these windows out. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the first crime that we see. The first crime is the fact that this was a season that David was supposed to be at war with the kings. He is supposed to be at war with the kings. This was a season that all the kings went out to battle. David not only stayed behind, he sent someone else in his stead. That was crime number 1, is abandonment of his post. David abandoned his post. David was out of position. That was his first crime. Now, what happened was David decides he's gonna, watching TV or around the house, kind of bored. Once he gets some fresh air, goes to his balcony. It's a setup from the enemy. The enemy had set him up. There Bathsheba is, and their rooftops. They're something about rooftops, in that day. And here is Bathsheba, just sunbathing, and he looks upon her and says, "I want that. I want that." That sounds like crime number 2, lust. So David was guilty of abandonment of his post. He abandoned his post as a king. He abandoned his post as a warrior. He abandoned his post as a leader and decided that he was going to please himself by lust. He lusted after her. He sent his servants over to get her. And now we have crime number 3. He committed adultery. Understand, if my biblical background history is correct, he already had 3 wives at this time. So it's not like he was a bachelor. David was not a bachelor. He already had 3 wives. So that was adultery right there. So he committed adultery. Now, I was reading, doing my research, and someone had mentioned one of the commentary writings had mentioned the word rape. I chose not to. I chose not to go down that route because that would have meant that he did something by force. And I didn't see anything in the scriptures that would have me to think that she was not a willing participant in that particular action. And I say that because of the way how the story goes, because after they did what they did, and of course, as we're going to talk about Uriah and how they had plotted to have Uriah murdered, and she moves in with David. Why am I going to move in with the person that violated me? So that's why I didn't. That's why I didn't go there. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear because it sounds as if David took advantage of her, but I believe she was willing because hey, a king, a king wants to, wants to be with me. Hey, that's just kind of sort of think about it in that light. So we've got him abandoning his post. We have lust, adultery, greed. Greed. He already had 3 wives, and he's just greedy, just greedy, just greedy. Now I want to really lay into this next one. I want to lay into this next one because what David did here, Bathsheba turns up pregnant with child. How am I going to explain? Because Uriah was so loyal to David, and the Ark of the Covenant was in a tent, and he's like, how can I go home and be with my wife, and the Ark of the Covenant is in a tent? I can't do that. I gotta stay. Matter of fact, he slept right there he slept at the he didn't go home. He didn't go home. So how are we going to pull this off? How are we going to do this? So I believe David, in his own mind, began thinking about how am I going to get around this? Okay, I'm going to put him on the front line, and usually the front line, those are the first soldiers that are met in death because of the violence and the force and the way the battle is. Whoever's on that front line, they're the first ones who get picked off because of what the battle looks like. You've got two armies that are running towards each other with swords, daggers, bows and arrows, and body armor and all of that stuff. So whoever's like more towards the back, the people in front are basically protecting or shielding them. But the first ones that get picked off are the ones who are like right there, that first row. That first row usually, take a look at I'm trying to think of some of the movies, and I don't know why I can't think of them, but some of the Rome, Rome and y'all know what I'm talking about. The movies where you see the two armies just boom coming together, and the first ones to go is those ones on the front line. So David set that up, knowing that Uriah would be honored to be in that position because he was loyal to his king. Put me on the front lines. I'm willing to lay down my life for my king. So, crime number 6. First degree murder. Crime number 6, first degree murder. David is guilty of first degree murder. First degree murder, and I'm reading this directly from this is a legal definition of first degree murder. This is what we're reading out of. First degree murder is the intentional killing of another person by someone who has acted willfully, deliberately, or with planning. Generally, there are 2 types of first degree murder: premeditated intent to kill and felony murder. Now we're going to focus on first-degree murder involving premeditated intent to kill. That's what we're going to focus on. It is important to note that the exact definition of first-degree murder depends upon, of course, each state. Now, in this case, we're talking about God's law. This is God's law we're talking about here. And its definition will vary by jurisdiction. And God says clearly in the commandments, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit murder. So this is first-degree murder. You see, most jurisdictions, including God's definition, will define first-degree murder as cases involving premeditation and deliberation. All other intentional murders are defined as second degree. So this was intentional and deliberate. That's the word we're looking for. It was deliberate. It was deliberate. And it was premeditated. It was planned. He planned for Uriah to be killed. He knew that if I put Uriah on the front lines, he's going to get killed in battle. That's called premeditation, and he deliberately did that. A premeditated intent to kill requires the defendant, David, had intent to kill and some willful deliberation. The defendant spent some time to reflect, think about it, reason it, change his mind. Is there any other way we can do this? Maybe we can, just have a secret affair and not, no. He thought about these things. And he decided that this was going to be the best route to go. So there was some reflection that took place. Reason or weight let me weigh my decision. What are the consequences? Don't care. To kill rather than killing on a sudden impulse. Prior planning and doing it deliberately are often closely intertwined. Did I plan it or was it deliberate? Both. He planned it and he did it deliberately. So that's where the pre comes from. He premeditated murder. Okay, where are we? This is justified because the defendant, David, must have thought about the murder for a period of time and did not change his mind. Didn't care that he had a wife. Didn't care that he had a position in the military. Didn't care about how valuable of a soldier this was. Didn't care about his life. Didn't care about, did they have kids? Did they have other kids? He was a breadwinner of the house. So if anything happens to him, what happens to Bathsheba? They didn't have 401k plans and military benefits. If you got killed, they didn't have all that back then. So who's going to take care of her if he died in battle? Who's gonna take up the slack? David wasn't thinking about any of that. So there are several factors in premeditation and deliberation. These include lack of provocation from the victim's actions and the words of the defendant before and after the killing. Any threats from the defendant before and after and during the killing, which don't even relate in this case, because all we see is Uriah. We see Uriah basically pledging himself to the king, saying, "King, send me. I'm going to defend you. I've got your back." No. We can't have the Ark of the Covenant just out there like that. I'm not even going to go home. I'm going to sleep right here in the palace with all the other servants. I'm not even going to make love to my wife. That's how serious this is, and that's how committed he was. So we see He is so guilty of premeditated murder. So let's take a look. And the defendant had, well, history. Okay, we're going to look at history. We can look at David's history. David has some high points and he has some low points. So if we did a background check on David, what would we find? We'd find him as a shepherd, killed a bear, killed a lion. He had a really good attitude regarding, the Saul thing while he was waiting to be king. He did pretty good. But then there's some rough patches that, after he became king, things kind of got crazy. He started cutting up a little bit. So we can look later on down the line about David's background. Because now remember, if we fast forward, when he was led to rebuild the temple, God would not let him do it because of his unrighteousness. His son Solomon rebuilt the temple. David's hands were dirty. David had blood on his hands. And God says, no. I love you. I appreciate what you've done. But no, you're not going to rebuild the temple. Solomon is, because of the crimes that you committed. And here it is. And the final crime that I saw, well, I know I said 7, and actually 8, but I'll go ahead and combine these two. No, he justified it. He justified it. This is how he justified it. He justified it saying, he wanted to be on the front lines. He's the one who came to me talking about he wanted to defend the ark. He wanted to, stand up and be strong, and he wanted to, be that soldier. He asked for this. Uriah asked to be on the front lines. Uriah wanted to show loyalty to his king. Okay. That leads me to my final point. David is guilty of abuse of power. David abused his power. He abused his power as king. He used it for selfish motives. If Uriah's death would have caused, would have been, had a better trade-off. Okay, Uriah, you're giving up your life to defend your country. You're giving up your life to defend the Ark of the Covenant. So your name is going to go, you're gonna be famous. Your sacrifice will be celebrated. We're gonna go ahead and honor you, and to make sure that we remember the fact that you laid your life down for the country. Because of you, the country was saved. The Ark of the Covenant was saved. Matter of fact, we won the battle because of you. You being on the front lines, sacrificing your life. We won. We that is not how the story goes. So that would have been a totally different spin on the sacrifice that Uriah was willing to make. But David took advantage of that. It's called abuse of power. How many of us leaders are guilty of abuse of power? We will take the loyalty of the people closest to us, and we will twist that and take advantage of them. And it's so not right that we take advantage of people who just want to be loyal. They're looking for someone to be loyal to. They're looking for leadership. They're looking for direction. They want to be attached to something. We can have a conversation about gangs, the structure and hierarchy about how gangs work, and to be jumped in. The young people, 14, 15, 16 years old, are being jumped into gangs. And what happens is they become loyal after they've been jumped in. I hope I'm using that phrase correctly. They become loyal to do anything that is asked of them. I watch too much Law and Order, y'all. Too much Law and Order. But that's what that's how the gang structure is set up. It's set up to where they get these young people who have no leadership. They have no father in the home. They have no direction. They're having behavior issues. They're not being accepted in quote unquote normal circles. So what happens? Gangs pick them up and sop them up like biscuits and syrup. And they initiate them into the gang. They jump them in, whatever they have to do. If they have to steal a car, they got to beat up an old person and steal their purse, whatever they have to do to be jumped. And then the gang beats them up. The gang beats them. That makes no sense to me. I'm going to join a gang, but y'all have to beat me up to prove the fact that I can take it. And then I'm in. But once you're in, you're in. You're in. Here comes the tattoo. Here comes the tattoo. And that identifies me with that gang. David's crime caused a tattoo of disobedience. That tattoo said, I have done wrong. And what that tattoo did is it exposed the fact that we are born in sin and shaped in iniquity. This confirms it right here. Let's go back over the sins. 7 crimes that David is guilty of. First one, he was out of position. He was supposed to be on the battlefield. Number 2, lust. Number 3, adultery. Number 4, greed. He already had 3 wives. He could have just taken her out to lunch. They could have just went to Starbucks and had coffee. With the escorts, of course. Hey, let me take you out to lunch. Where's your husband? Oh, he's on the front lines. Let me go ahead and take you out to lunch. We can, just hang out for a minute and we can be friends. Nope, he didn't do that. Greed, he already had 3 wives. First degree murder. David is guilty of first degree murder. Justification, abuse of power. Those kind of go together. He justified it by saying, Uriah came to me. Uriah wanted this. Uriah was willing to lay down his life. And it just was real convenient. And like I said, here's the trippy thing about the whole thing. The fact that Bathsheba moved in with David and married him. They got married. Okay. So, wanted to share that. That's the backdrop. Now, this is the backdrop of our study. I wanted to give that backdrop so we really get a context of how bad this situation was. David didn't just hit somebody's car. This wasn't a hit and run. This wasn't, I accidentally picked up your cell phone and, sorry about that, I accidentally picked up your cell phone instead of mine. Here it is. David didn't write a bad check. David didn't, do something fraudulent at the bank, kiting checks. David was not guilty of identity theft. David was guilty of first degree murder. He took someone's life because he wanted to cover up his sin. That's serious. That was premeditated and deliberate. He planned that. That's some serious stuff. That's why Psalm 51 is so deep, y'all. This is why Psalm 51 is so deep. Because of this. These are the 7 sins. I presented to you on tonight the 7 sins of David, according to 1 Samuel chapter 11. 1 Samuel chapter 12, we're going to take a look at the story of the sheep that was sacrificed for no good reason. We're going to take a look at a rich man, a traveler, and just a sheep owner. We're going to take a look at that on our next broadcast, and how Nathan used that story to grip the heart of a king. May God bless you and may God keep you on tonight.